The saddest thing about betrayal is that it never comes from your enemies. It comes from those you have faith in. Some of the most poisonous people come disguised as friends and family. My motto has always been to protect the oppressed, even if he is my enemy. But I will never forgive the traitor, even if he is my friend.
Now, shall we begin?
Yeah. You're quite emotional about that.
Well, it's just, it's been such a tough year for so many people, and there's William Shakespeare putting it so simply for everybody that, we can get on with our lives. And
without proof of the vaccine, you can't go into a pub, club, restaurant, gymnasium, anywhere at all. You can't travel, theatre, you can't even go into work. I mean, personally, I have to say, I don't even think that we should allow people on the streets unless they've had the vaccine.
You've had your booster, and when you see people who will not take it, putting themselves at risk, it's said, do you feel the same way I do? Does that make you angry?
It makes me angry, especially in America where they talk about, it's my right, it's my freedom. No, it's not, because you are a killer.
It is beyond boring now, listening to under 30s sanctimoniously preaching from their high horse because somehow they think they're immune from the virus and they don't have to do their bits to protect others from this vaccine, from this virus. I've had this conversation with many friends, and I'm willing to cut people off if they're not willing to get out there, get the jab, and protect others from this virus. I'm done with people like Joanna lecturing the public, lecturing the viewers at home, saying, well, I'm under 30, I'm not really at risk, it's okay, my body, my choice, this philosophical junk, and it needs to be stopped.
I've talked about this a lot, but I'm appalled by this.
Yeah.
And I really think it's not acceptable. And if you work in NHS and care work, and you're a potential risk to the people you're caring for, you either have the jab or you don't go to work, I think.
But wherever you are, we love you from the bottom of our hearts, and we know you love us.
And we want to see you again. COVID-19 has kept us apart for way too long.
We want to hug you, we want to celebrate with you, we want to worship with you. We want to play video games with you, preferably in the same room, so that we can see the look on your face when we beat you.
But in order to do all that, we all need to take the COVID-19 jab. So all of us in this together.
Things will slowly get back to normal. Well, what they're calling the new normal. But in reality, the new normal will mean needing a vaccine for doing the kinds of things we used to take for granted.
Because we love you, we want you to be safe. We don't want you to be left out or left behind.
Don't let your concerns be the thing that widens racial inequality in our society.
Don't let coronavirus cost even more Black lives. Because we matter.
But look, those measures, those Plan B measures, are only in place because the Labour Party stepped up and acted in the national interest. The right thing to do according to the evidence.
Mr. Hancock, you've introduced a law by which a perfectly healthy individual could be incarcerated for 10 years for wrongly misleading about the fact he or she had been to Portugal. Perfectly healthy individual locked up for 10 years. What is your legal background on that?
Well,
I understood you were an economist. I didn't know you had a background in law.
The position I find myself is that I think it is incredibly important that we protect our borders in order to keep people safe. And given all the progress that we're making, we've got to protect that progress. And that's the approach that I'm taking. I make no apologies for it. I think it is very important. I'm not asking you to apologise.
I'm just asking you to justify why it's the same stretch as if I was carrying a firearm, and it's longer if I attempted to have sex with a 13-year-old girl for coming in from Portugal. What makes you think that's the right stretch?
We made the big call to refocus our National Health Service, necessarily requiring the difficult postponement of many other appointments so that we could double the speed of the booster programme.
And I want to speak directly to all those who have yet to get fully vaccinated, the people who think the disease can't hurt them. look at the people going into hospital now. That could be you. Look at the intensive care units and the miserable, needless suffering of those who did not get their booster. That could be you.
One of the big pluses for me is that with vaccine passports, and again, I do share some of Beverly's concerns about sort of state control and all of that, but with vaccine passports, we can potentially get rid of all the social distancing, all the stuff that we've had in the past. That's the way forward for me. I think that would benefit the hospitality industry far more than just opening the doors, but introducing all the restrictions we've had in the past. It just doesn't work. There is no such thing. Herd immunity without vaccination is the strongest survive. You are literally saying, let weak people die. That is what you are saying. There is no herd immunity without vaccination.
As we said last week, we do reserve the right to mandate certification at any point if it's necessary to reduce transmission. And I should serve notice now that by the end of September, when all over 18s will have had their chance to be double jabbed, we're planning to make full vaccination the condition of entry to nightclubs and other venues where large crowds gather. Proof of a negative test will no longer be enough.
And it'll surprise no one to learn that I will not be joining in the libertarian pile-on against scientists, led by people who, I have to say, even in these circumstances, in a chamber this small, still do not use face coverings.
There has been a campaign via, I think, the Daily Telegraph newspaper, where the former Prime Minister, even the former Prime Minister, said that you should improve testing at airports, or indeed put testing in at airports, and we don't. Why not?
The challenge is that the false positive rate is very high. So only 7% of tests will be successful in identifying those that actually have the virus. So the truth is, you can't just rely on that. And in fairness, I don't think those advocating it think that you can.
People have got to understand vaccination is going to be, in the end, your route to liberty.
Frankly, if you're not vaccinated at the moment and you're eligible and you've got no health reason for not being vaccinated, you're not just irresponsible. I mean, you're an idiot.
We're going to move to a situation where, to protect the health system, we're going to lock out people who are not vaccinated and can be. If you're making the choice not to get vaccinated, then you're making the wrong choice. You're making the wrong choice. And for safety's sake, and back to that point about how much work our nurses have to do, as this becomes absolutely a pandemic of the unvaccinated and we open everything up, it's not going to be safe for people who are not vaccinated to be roaming around the place spreading the virus. That's what they'll be doing.
We need to make it clear to them that the vaccine is the ticket back to pre-pandemic life. And the window to do that is really narrowing. I mean, you were mentioning, Chris, about how all these states are reopening. They're reopening at 100%. And we have a very narrow window to tie reopening policy to vaccination status. Because otherwise, if everything is reopened, then what's the carrot going to be? How are we going to incentivize people to actually get the vaccine? So that's why I think the CDC and the Biden administration needs to come out a lot bolder and say, if you're vaccinated, you can do all these things. Here are all these freedoms that you have. Because otherwise, people are going to go out and enjoy these freedoms anyway.
So I hear what you say about somebody exercising their freedom not to have a vaccine, and they're perfectly healthy. I don't want them sitting next to me in the theatre. I don't want them standing next to me at the theatre bar. I don't want them next to me or anywhere near me or even in the same carriage on the train. So, yeah, they can exercise their freedom by staying at home.
If you're willing to walk among us unvaccinated, you are an enemy.
Those who haven't had jabs but could have jabs need to have a badge saying unjabbed.
Really?
Yeah.
Emmanuel Macron said his government's vaccination strategy was to piss off the unvaccinated by continuing to make daily life more difficult. In an interview with the French newspaper La Parisienne, he is quoted to have said, "I am not about pissing off the French people, but as for the non-vaccinated, I really want to piss them off. And we will continue to do this to the end. This is the strategy."
We've tried the education, we've tried the carrot, we now move to the stick. If it takes time now, the time to find people, great. Let's start. Let's never go with €100, make it £100, right? And it starts, and I tell you what, it's not 60, but let's make it 40 and above, starting on Monday, okay? Now, if we come round, knock on the door, and you can show on your phone, or you've got a letter or something, you've got an appointment, that's fine. But if you willfully oppose now, you're 40 and above, £100 fine in December, £100 fine in January, £200 in February, £300 in March, By the end of the year, you'll be spending about £1,000, and that might cut through your ignorance.
Who is fully vaccinated or tested negative or has recovered from COVID can get one. And we have right now 15 member states that have already signed up. And from the 1st of July, all 27 member states have to apply these EU digital certificates for the COVID. I am planning now to start my tour through 27 member states for the Next Generation EU, our Recovery and Resilience plan, and I'm very curious to test and to see how this certificate will work. Thank you.
When are we going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, it's mandatory to get vaccinated? F them, f their freedom. I want my freedom to live.
Dr. Fauci said that if hospitals get any more overcrowded, they're going to have to make some very tough choices about who gets an ICU bed. That choice doesn't seem so tough to me. Vaccinated person having a heart attack? Yes, come right on in. We'll take care of you. Unvaccinated guy who gobbled horse goo? Rest in peace, Wheezy.
If you decide that you don't want a vaccine or a booster, then you can decide not to go to hospital however ill you get. And that is your right.
So you would leave the unjabbed at home to die if they had a heart attack, if they suffered from a stroke?
We just have to make people understand that, no jab, no life. And that's how it is.
Justin Trudeau, I thought he was kind of a cool guy. I started to read what he said. This is a couple of weeks ago. Or maybe this is September, but he was talking about people who are not vaccinated. He said they don't believe in science. They're often misogynistic, often racist. No, they're not.
That was not smart of him at all.
Right. He said, but they take up space. And with that, we have to make a choice in terms of a leader as a country. Do we tolerate these people? It's like, tolerate them. Now you do sound like Hitler.
If you don't want to get vaccinated, that's your choice. But don't think you can get on a plane or a train besides vaccinated people and put them at risk.
Third, Mr. Speaker, we'll be backing this new system with strong enforcement of both home quarantine and hotel quarantine. People who flout these rules are putting us all at risk. And we'll be putting in place tough fines for people who don't comply. This includes a £1,000 penalty for any international arrival who fails to take a mandatory test, a £2,000 penalty to any international arrival who fails to take the second mandatory test, as well as automatically extending their quarantine period to 14 days, and a £5,000 fixed penalty notice, rising to £10,000 for arrivals who fail to quarantine in a designated hotel. We're also coming down hard on people who provide false information on the passenger locator form. Anyone who lies on the passenger locator form and tries to conceal that they've been in a country on the red list in the 10 days before arrival here will face a prison sentence of up to 10 years. These measures will be put into law this week, and I've been working with the Home Secretary, the Border Force and the police to make sure more resources are being put into enforcing these measures. I make no apologies for the strength of these measures. The new measures build on the tough action that we've already taken. It is, of course, illegal to travel abroad without a legally permitted reason to do so, so it's illegal to travel abroad for holidays and other leisure purposes. For the minority who are travelling for exceptional purposes, they will be subject to a specific compliance regime and end-to-end checks throughout the journey here.
People who refuse to accept vaccines, I think the right response for them is not to force them to, but rather to insist that they be isolated.
Don't get the vaccine, you can't go to the supermarket. Don't have the vaccine, can't go to the ball game. Don't have the vaccine, can't go to work. You don't have the vaccine, can't come here. No shirt, no shoes, no service. That's where I think we should be right now.
We have to stop coddling the morons who will not get the shot. We start by calling them what they are. They are all snowflakes and cowards and idiots and losers.
Who's authorised the breach of the peace? Find out for you later, but not just it's in place, so you need to know. Not that way. Because it's blocked. You're not going that way because of COVID. Don't touch me, just move away from it. I know you're big and strong and you want to fight, not everyone.
Otherwise, dismiss anything else. We will continue to be your single source of truth. We will provide information frequently. Stay local and do not congregate. Don't talk to your neighbours. Please keep to your bubbles. We know from overseas cases of the Delta variant that it can be spread by people simply walking past one another. So keep those movements outside to the bare minimum, wear a mask, and make sure you keep up that physical distancing.
To winter. I'm going to come on to it in the detail of my speech. But one important feature of this proposed legislation is that it gives staff a grace period in which to get vaccinated. The longer we take on this, the more risk there is to having that grace period. But one important feature of this proposed legislation is that it gives staff a grace period in which to get vaccinated.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's complete nonsense to claim that vaccine passports mean that you're being forced to get the vaccine. Everyone has a choice. We have choices in all parts of our lives every day, but choices have consequences. And if you're not willing to take the step that is scientifically proven to make yourself safer and those around you safer by getting your free 2 doses of the vaccine, then you are making a choice that has a consequence that you can't do some other things. And I think it's fair enough that the government has said they'll wait till September, because that's when everyone aged 18 and over will have had the chance of their second dose. So people that refuse to get that, for me, those people are selfish, they're dangerous, and I dare say they're a bit stupid, because I can't understand why you would turn down your vaccine, and I don't think that they should be able to lead their lives as normal when they're putting other people at risk. And
It's my privilege to have been asked to conduct our service today to celebrate the life of Alan Wright. I therefore offer you all a very warm welcome as we unite in love and friendship to...
You're not the manager, but I mean, I'm reporting. Hang on a minute, just a minute before you go. I am asking you. I want this doctor. Hang on a minute. Don't take her away. Hey! Don't take her away. Don't take her away. Don't take her away. You absolute. Oh God.
Hi. Yep. It's okay. Hey, I love you. I wish. She still got that ankle monitor on? Damn prison. I know, Mama. Sickening. I love you.
Excuse me, is this your timeout from the red flight? Is this the timeout from the red flight? What? How much time do you get? How much do you get? Half an hour? Okay.
A couple of times a day you can.
What?
There's security on every floor.
You're joking.
There's full security on every floor. Security on every lift. There's 20 to 30 security guys in the lobby, so you can't come.
Wow.
And you're social distancing here. Exercising. No, excuse me. He can't speak to us. It's his right. They are not prisoners. I'm having a conversation with him. No, I'm talking to him.
You don't need permission. We're outside. We're outside.
Permission?
Dude,
I don't need your permission to talk to somebody across the fence.
No, you don't.
Permission. I do not.
No, our rights.
I can talk to whoever I want to talk to. Look, yes, I can. Yes, I can. You go find out before I report you. Before I report you.
Please find his name. This is wrong. You cannot tell him who he can and can't speak to. We don't need to go anywhere. We're having a discussion. Thank you.
Now you understand, right?
My goodness. Okay, and that's the £1,700 you pay. 50. We're so sorry.
Have a good one.
Take care. You too. Bye bye.
And it's interesting to note, really, that Mr. Djokovic thinks it's okay for sports spectators, all his fans, to take the vaccine that allows him to get back to play the sport in front of them and earn millions again. It's okay for him to have them take the vaccine, but the vaccine is not okay for him.
I think it's very important for people to grasp what an amber list country is. It is not somewhere where you should be going on holiday. But let me be very clear about that. And we will continue to take very, very draconian action in respect of all.
Look, as a doctor, I have to ask the question, is a holiday really important and essential in a global pandemic? It really isn't. Well, it's a luxury. It's something that you can do without in order to preserve life. I think Spain are worried because of infection rates. They're worried about their health services being overwhelmed. And they want the message to be out there that even on a beach, if you're looking at those pictures that we've just seen, if you're on a crowded beach, there's a risk of transmission. And in theory, if you go swimming in the sea, you should be wearing a mask.
Let me be clear. If you're in a state where hurricanes often strike, like Florida or the Gulf Coast or into Texas, a vital part of preparing for hurricane season is to get vaccinated now. Everything is more complicated if you're not vaccinated and a hurricane or a natural disaster hits.
What we're putting out today is saying we should really distinguish between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. So both here at home, if we do have to adjust some of the freedoms
about vaccine refusers. They're selfish, morally repugnant, irresponsible people who are enjoying their freedom because the rest of us are being vaccinated. All these vaccine refusers, their kids are going to school, they're going to hairdressers, they're coming into studios like this. Why? Because the large part of the population are being vaccinated. If we weren't vaccinated, if we didn't all have skin in the game, we'd all be mothballed. So it's all very well rolling your eyes.
Fully vaccinated foreign nationals. Fully vaccinated Americans. Those are the people who are allowed to come to Canada right now. Because we know that this fourth wave that is filling up ICU beds and putting a strain on healthcare systems across the country and slowing down our economic recovery in certain parts of the country is a wave that is affecting the unvaccinated.
This is going to be like, so you basically see this is going to be like, well, it's almost like, you probably don't see it like this, the two different classes of people. If you're vaccinated or if you're unvaccinated, you have all these rights. If you are vaccinated...
That is what it is, so yep. Yep.
So you basically see this is going to be like, well, it's almost like, you probably don't see it like this, the two different classes of people. If you're vaccinated or if you're unvaccinated, you have all these rights. If you are vaccinated...
That is what it is, so yep. Yep.
Myths about the vaccine, that needs to be addressed. We still need more education.
Every day I read such nonsense on social media about these vaccines from ignorant, ill-informed people.
And then so that we've lost in care homes through the pandemic for over 40,000. Why would you put elderly people at risk or vulnerable people at risk just because a few people are not prepared to have the jab? They keep going on about human rights and all this nonsense. The world's changed. We need to get everybody jabbed. It should be no job, no jab, no job, no travel if you've not had the jab. It should give them no of the furlough money if they've not had the jab. I know it's not what people want to hear, but we need to stop pussyfooting around. It's the only option we've got at the moment to get through the pandemic. Why are we all against it? Or not all against it, but why are these people just causing a big scream up over nothing?
I want to repeat it. If you are anti-mandate, you are absolutely anti-vax. I don't care what your personal vaccination status is. If you support, champion, give a green light, give comfort to, support anybody who argues against the vaccine, you are an anti-vaxxer. Absolutely. Your personal vaccination status is utterly irrelevant. And if you are out there in any way, shape or form campaigning against this mandate, you are absolutely anti-vax. If you say pro-persuasion, stuff it, shove it. We are absolutely going to make sure as many Territorians as possible are vaccinated. That is our best protection against this thing. And if you look at the Doherty modelling, it's only come out since, that says if you double dose 80 in remote communities, 5 and up, I think you'll see our vaccine mandate is absolutely crucial to protecting lives, particularly Aboriginal lives.
It may seem very controversial to some people, but the reality is that we now need forced vaccinations on the unvaccinated population. If not now, at some point over the next year, we are going to have to use force to vaccinate those who would otherwise delay and make impossible the herd immunity that we so desperately need.
I don't take the vaccination only to protect me. I take the vaccination to protect all the people around me. And I don't understand where that is a limitation of freedom. Because if it is, then not being allowed to drink and drive is a limitation of freedom as well.
The whole country could be locked down because our hospitals have been overwhelmed with people who chose to refuse the vaccine. So as far as I'm concerned, there should be a lockdown for the unvaccinated because they're the people that are going to burden the NHS.
So I just want to say to all of you cowards out there, don't be such a chicken squat. Get out there and get shot. It goes, vaccine, 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 vaccine. I'm begging of you, please don't hesitate. Vaccine, 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 vaccine. Because once you're dead, then that's a bit too late.
People not get it that it's the law here to wear a face mask. We just noticed when you walked in you weren't wearing a mask. But why is that, sir? Do you care? Do you care?